In this video, I go through an Edexcel GCSE Maths Foundation Paper 3. Now, usually this paper would take 1 hour and 30 minutes under exam conditions, but I have sped that up significantly so that you can revise a lot more effectively. This is a fast-paced video, so please pause where you need to and let me know in the comments if anything doesn't make sense. Without wasting any more time, let's get to question number 1. So, question number 1, write the number 3107 in figures. 3107, just like that. Write 3 over 10 as a percentage. This is going to be 30%. Simplify m plus m plus m plus m. Think about these as physical objects. So if you've got banana plus banana plus banana plus banana is 4 bananas. We just replace that with m, so that is 4m. 4,000 grams into kilograms. There is 1,000 grams in a kilogram, so that's going to be 4 kilograms. Write these numbers in order of size, starting with the smallest. -5, -2, 3, 7, and 9. We have a shape on a centimetre grid. Find the area. Because it's a centimetre grid, just count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 centimetres squared. Find the perimeter. So, again, these are centimetre squares, so count the squares that make up the outside of the shape. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 1 there, 4 there, and 2 more there. Add those up, and you're going to get 18 centimetres. Here is a 4-sided spinner. Samina spins the spinner once. Choose the word that best describes probability that the spinner lands on 2. Evens, because it makes up 2 of the 4 possible options. Chance of it landing on a number less than 4 is certain, because all of those numbers are less than 4. Ralph rolls a biased dice once. The probability that he gets the number 5 is 0.4. Work out the probability that Ralph does not get the number 5. In a probability set, you either get 5 or you don't get 5. So the total probability of that will be 1. So that is going to give us 0.6, because 1 minus 0.4 is 0.6. Quadrilateral has 4 right angles and 4 sides of equal length. Write down the mathematical name of this quadrilateral. Because they're all equal length, this is going to be a square. We have a solid shape. Write down the mathematical name of this shape. A 3D version of a rectangle is called a cuboid, so that's a cuboid. The table shows the number of books read by 4 people in 1 month. What is the median number of books? When we do medians, you want to put the numbers in order. So 1, 5, 7, and 9, and we choose the middle one. Now, because 5 and 7 are both the middle numbers here, we go in the middle of those, which gives us 6. Find the range. The range is the biggest number, take away the smallest number, so we get 8. On the grid, draw a bar chart to show the information in the table. Notice you'll get 3 marks for this, so we need to make sure axes are labelled, you have proper scales on the axes, and then obviously the actual data has to be correct as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you will see the final product. And here is your final bar chart. Wayne begins walking at 8:30, he walks for 1 hour and 45 minutes, rests for 15, and then 85 minutes to a cafe. Does Wayne get there before midday? 8:30 plus 1 hour and 45 is going to take you to 10:15 in the morning. Waits for 15 minutes. So 10:15 plus 15 minutes is going to be 10:30. And then walks for 85 minutes to the cafe. 10:30 plus 85 minutes. Now 90 minutes is an hour and a half. So that would take you to 12 o'clock. So we're just going to take 5 minutes off that, which is going to be 11:55. So you would say yes. Gabriel thinks of a number, he multiplies his number by 5, adds 7, gets 72. So the way we answer these ones is we want to just do it in reverse. So we start with 72, we take away 7 instead of adding it to get 65, and then Gabriel multiplies by 5 to get 65, so instead of multiplying by 5, we divide by 5. Again, you can use your calculator for this, but that's going to give you 13, and that's going to be your final number. Now we can double check this by doing that in reverse again. Some students took a guitar exam. The pie chart shows the information about the grades. Write down the modal grade. The modal grade is the most often. If you see the MO at the start, most often. That's going to be a merit because it takes up most of the pie chart with 150 degrees. 7 students got a distinction. Work out the total number of students who took the guitar exam. So 7 students, and distinction is represented by 105 degrees in the pie chart. So 1 student, if we do 105 divided by 7, it will give us 15. And then we need to find the total number of students who took the exam. So we need to find how many students are represented in a total of 360 degrees. So we can do 360 divided by 15 to work out what that multiplier needs to be, and that's going to be 24. So we multiply the left-hand side by 24, and we get 24 students. So 24 is our final answer. Rowena drove from her home to a beach. Here is a travel graph for her journey. Rowena stopped at a cafe on the way to a beach. How many minutes did she take to drive to the cafe? So you can see here there is a blip in where she didn't get any further away from home, implying that she was stopped. And that must have been when she was at the cafe. That means that she was driving to the cafe in this section here, implying that it would have been 30 minutes. Write down the distance from Rowena's home to the cafe. That, again, the cafe is here, so that must be 10 miles. Rowena stayed at the beach for 1.5 hours. She then drove home without stopping. Rowena arrived home at 1600 hours. On the grid, complete the travel graph. So stayed at the beach for 1.5 hours, so that's going to be a constant line for 1.5 hours. So we're currently at 1:30, so that's going to go all the way to 3 o'clock. And then Rowena arrived home at 1600 without stopping. So we basically just connect up the 1600 point with the line we currently have, and that's what your final result is going to look like. Work out the average speed for the journey from the beach to Rowena's home. Now the speed is distance over time, as we know. So we can say speed equals distance over time. And you can see that if we go back to our graph, the distance is 35 miles, and she completes that in 1 hour. So that is going to be 35 miles per hour, because it's 35 divided by 1, and that's your final answer. 120 boxes cost £6, 270 bags cost £10. A bag is cheaper than a box. How much cheaper? So let's work it out in something that we can compare. So the best way to do this is work out how much a box costs and then how much a bag costs. So one box, if 120 boxes cost £6, we want to work out one box. So we do £6 divided by 120, and that equals 5 pence. And then one bag is going to equal £10 divided by 270. So put that in your calculator and you will get 0.037, where recurring is on the 0 and the 7. So just to be clear, this means 037, 037, and so on. So because the next one's a 0, we can just ignore those last three and call it 3.7p. So then we have to work out how much cheaper it is. So 5p take away 3.7p, 1.3 pence. And that's going to be your final answer. There are only red beads and green beads in a bag. The ratio of red to green is 1:4. There are 35 red beads. Work out the total number of beads in the bag. So 1:4, where we know the 1 is actually 35. So we've multiplied by 35 on that side, meaning we multiply by 35 on that side, which will give us 140. And then adding those two together is going to give us 175 beads. Describe fully the single transformation that maps A onto B. Now, because the shape has been rotated to the side, it is going to be a rotation. If you do get tracing paper, feel free to use it, but we get 1 mark for saying this is a rotation. There's 2 other things we need to talk about. We need to talk about how much it's been rotated by and what direction, and then also the center of rotation. What point did it rotate around? I would recommend just practicing a lot of these because they can be quite difficult to spot sometimes, but I can see that there is a clear right angle between those 2 points there. This is going to be a 90 degrees clockwise rotation, and it's going to be around the point 0, 0 or the origin. You can call it whatever you want, but that is going to be your final answer. Again, use the tracing paper if you prefer to use that. Looks like we have a bearing. Whenever you see a north line like this, it's going to be to do with bearings. Diagram shows the position of town T. Town R is 55 kilometers from town T on a bearing of 65. Now, this isn't on actual paper, so if you do have just paper, you're going to be using a protractor and a ruler here. So the key thing to note is 1 centimeter represents 10 kilometers. So 55 kilometers is going to be 5.5 centimeters. So first of all, measure off 65 degrees, which is going to be roughly around about there, I would say, and call it 5.5 centimeters. So again, just to be clear, 65 degrees there, 5.5 centimeters. Mark the position of town R with a cross. And just to be safe, wouldn't be a bad habit to draw that north line in as well. And that will be your final answer. Only 2 marks for that. We have a bit of algebra, solve an equation. What I would recommend is expand out the brackets if you see brackets typically. So we can use our expanding brackets method. The claw method is what I've always called it. 8x minus 12 is equal to 20. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. 8x equals 32. And then we divide by 8 on both sides to get x equals 4. Again, with equations, substitute that 4 back into the equation to make sure you've got the right answer. Jenny invests $3,000 for 6 years at Y% simple interest. That makes our life a lot easier. At the end of the 6 years, Jenny has received a total of £450 in interest. Work out the value of Y. Simple interest just means that the value you get back every year will be the same based off of the initial investment you made. So what we can do here is do 450 divided by the 6, and that's going to break down exactly how much money Jenny got back each year. And then we can do what percentage of 3,000 is 75. So 75 over 3,000, times that by 100 and put that in your calculator. And that is going to give you 2.5%, which sounds about right. So that's going to be your final answer there. Hopefully that made sense. Again, if you want me to explain anything, let me know in the comments. Question 20. Simplify m squared all cubed. Indices laws, make sure you practice them if this doesn't make sense. When we've got the brackets like that, we multiply the powers to be m to the 6. When we multiply, we add the powers, so that's going to be x to the 13. And then finally expanding this out. So again, using that claw method again, for p times p squared is going to be p cubed, and then p times p is another p squared, and then we multiply the numbers as well to get 12. That's going to be our final answer there. Johnny wants to know how much coffee he will need for 800 people at a meeting. Each person who drinks coffee will drink 2 cups of coffee. 10.6 grams of coffee is needed for each cup. Johnny assumes 68% of the people will drink coffee. Using this assumption, work out the amount of coffee that Johnny needs. So, going back to that last line straight away, 68% of 800 people will drink coffee as an estimate. So in your calculator, you want to put 0.68 times 800. That is the quickest way to work out percentages using a calculator. So that's going to be 544 people. We then double that to work out the total number of cups of coffee. That's going to be 1,088 cups. And then 1,088 cups multiplied by 10.6 grams to work out the total amount of coffee needed, which is 11,532.8, and that's going to be your grams, and give it correct to the nearest gram, so 11533 grams. There is your final answer. Johnny's assumption is wrong. 72% of the people will drink coffee. How does this affect your answer? Now, actually, more people are going to be drinking coffee. Part A is actually too low. So I've just put the answer for part A needs to be higher. That is not enough coffee. ACF are straight lines, ADG are straight lines, BCD and EFG are parallel lines. Show that it's an isosceles triangle. Something I always say to people is each of these lines is going to be telling you something that you need to use, typically. So if both this and this is a straight line, we know that the angles on those lines will be adding up to 180 at the intersection. So here, for example, we've got 70 degrees. We also know that BCD and EFG are parallel lines. Now, the key thing here about the fact they are parallel lines means we can use those parallel line angle rules, which are the alternate angles, co-interior and corresponding angles. So for example, if that one's 70 up there, by the corresponding angles, which is the F-shaped ones you might remember, so that's when both of those angles are the same, assuming these are parallel. If this angle here is 125, we can do 180 take away 125 to get this one as 55. And because of the corresponding angles again, we can put 55 in up there. And then finally, because we need to prove that ACD is isosceles, which is this one up here, we can work out what the final angle is going to be. So 55 plus 70 is 125. And then, as we know from before, 180 take away 125 is 55. So this is an isosceles triangle. So we can say that angle CAD is equal to angle ACD, which is just those two 55 ones there. Just for those that don't understand that notation, angle CAD, you start at C and you make that kind of pathway. And it's the angle that is left in between that. And likewise for ACD, you go down and across, and it's that angle in between. So because those two angles are the same, we can say it's an isosceles triangle, because that's what an isosceles triangle is. And then I've just added 2 extra points that I would recommend you add at the bottom just to show the fact that we did our corresponding angles with our parallel line angle rules, and a basic one just to say that angles in a triangle add to 180, because that is what we used behind this maths there. So hopefully that makes sense. That is 5 out of 5 marks. Question 23. It takes 14 hours for 5 identical pumps to fill a water tank. How many would it take 4 of these pumps to fill another water tank of the same size? So this is inverse proportion. Remember, if you have less pumps, it's going to take longer. So as one goes down, the other one is going to go up. So 5 pumps equals 14 hours. They're quite nice to work out. You just need to have a very basic equation set up like this. So 5 pumps is 14 hours. I would recommend working out how long it takes for 1 pump. So because we are dividing by 5, it's going to take 5 times as long for that 1 pump to work. So we multiply that side by 5, which is 70 hours. And then we can go back up to 4 pumps nicely because we multiply by 4, which means we divide by 4 there. And that's going to be 17.5 hours. A and B are numbers such that A is that and B is that. Work out the highest common factor. So we would normally, when we do our highest common factor and lowest common multiple, we would do our factor trees and we'd get a result like this. So now I would recommend drawing our Venn diagram out. Label one of them A, label one of them B, make sure you have a big section in the middle. The highest common factor is the numbers in the middle times together. So you can see we have 2 3s common in both, and we have 1 7 that is in both. So if we fill in the rest of them in A, we've got 2 extra 2s and 2 more 3s. And then B is going to have just an extra 7. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. Happy to help out. The highest common factor is going to be 3 times 3 times 7, which is 9 times 7, which is 63. So 63 is the highest number that multiplies into both A and B. We don't need to work out what A and B actually are for this. So don't waste your time doing that. The LCM is going to be all the numbers multiplied together in that. So 2 squared, because we got 2 2s. We got 4 3s, so 3 to the power of 4. And then 7 squared. That one I would recommend putting in the calculator. Is going to give you a big number of 15,876. And that's going to be your final answer. Lava flows from a volcano at a constant rate of 11.9 meters cubed per second. How many days does it take for that much lava to flow from the volcano? So bearing in mind here we're talking about per second, we want to try and convert this unit into days. So we can work out how much per hour could be a good one first of all. So 11.9 times 60 is going to give us per minute first of all. And that is going to be 714 meters cubed per minute. If we times that by 60 again, we're going to get per hour. So 42,840 meters cubed per hour. If we then multiply that by 24, we're going to get the total per day. So this is over 1 million meters cubed per day. And then finally, we do 65,205,600 divided by that number there. Put that in our calculator. That's going to give us the number of days it takes for that amount to flow out of the volcano. And that gives me an answer of 65.4, let's call it. So to the nearest day, that's going to be 65 days. And that's our final answer. Here is a graph of y equals x squared minus 2x minus 2. Write down the coordinates of the turning point. That is where the graph goes from going down to start going up again. That bottom point there is going to be 1 minus 3. Write down an estimate for one of the roots. So just one of the roots. The roots are when it equals 0. So when this line crosses the x-axis, let's go for this one here. Keep it positive, a little bit easier. You can see that is in between 2.6 and 2.8, so probably safe to assume 2.7 is a good estimate. You could also go for the negative one down here, which is in between minus 0.6 and minus 0.8, so again minus 0.7, probably a good guess. A solid cuboid is made out of metal. The metal has a density of 9 and a volume of 7. So density is mass over volume. If you ever forget that, it tells you in the units for density. Grams being the mass, centimeters cubed is a volume. So if we think about that in the equation triangle that I would highly recommend all of you are aware of, we want to work out the mass. So cover that one up and it's going to tell you it's going to be the density times the volume. 9 times 72. Put that in your calculator and you will get your final answer. And your final answer is 648 grams. Write this ratio in the form 1 to n. where n is an integer. So we need to convert these into whole numbers. You could do it without whole numbers, but you need to put them as an integer anyway in the end, so easier to do it now. 9 times 10 to the 4, you can put it in your calculator if you want. That's going to give you 90,000. 4.5 times 10 to the 6 is 4.5 million. So 1 to n, so we divide this by 90,000 on both sides, because we need that number to be 1 to match this. So effectively all we're doing is 4.5 million divided by 90,000, and that is 50, and that's your final answer. Write the following numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest number. So I would recommend converting all of these into normal numbers rather than standard form, just to make your lives a bit easier. Again, you've got a calculator, so 56,250. That one's going to stay the same. So I've literally put all of those into my calculator, and this is the numbers I've got, so it does work very well. Smallest number is the third one. Again, always make sure you write it in the original format rather than your new numbers. Next, we're going to have the fourth one, and then the second one, 5625, and then the proper standard form one last. And that's your final answer. And that is the end of the paper. So thank you very much for watching. I really hope you found this useful. Best of luck with your exams, and please like and subscribe if you found it useful. I will see you in the next video.